good? Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the delay. Welcome and good morning. I will officially call the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee for Thursday, May 18th, 2023, the public hearing to order. We have one item on the agenda. It's a Senate resolution for review. It's a nomination of Ronald P. Welch of Waterford to be appointed as Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. Good morning, sir. If you can come and join us. If you can do me a favor and raise your right hand. Do you promise, swear, and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Wonderful. The floor is yours for any opening comments.
Good morning, Senator Duff, Representative Concepcion, Senator Looney, Representative Godfrey, Senator Kelly, Representative Yacarino, and members of the Executive Committee, Legislative Nomination Committee, also Representative Sanchez and Representative Figueroa. My name is Ron Welch. I'm honored and humbled to be nominated to serve as the next Commissioner of the State of Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs by Governor Ned Lamont. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today to tell you a little bit about myself, my prior military service, and most recent work at Easter Seals Capital Region, Eastern Connecticut Veterans Rally Point, which is a 501c3 located in Norwich. I currently serve as the Vice President for Military Services at Veterans Rally Point. We provide free programs and services to active military, National Guard, reservists, veterans, and families. In 2018, the state of Connecticut graciously provided a $2.5 million grant for us to build out an 18,000 square foot space called Veterans Rally Point, a one-stop shop, a center of excellence. Our program includes a wellness studio, employment services, financial counseling, a maker space with a wood shop, sewing, and pottery. We have a fitness center with a climbing wall, a kitchen with a food pantry, and a large community space to host events. Prior to serving at Veterans Rally Point, I served in the United States Army, starting out as an airborne ranger and then full-time in the Connecticut National Guard for nearly 40 years of combined service. I started out as a private and I retired as a brigadier general. During that time, I held 28 different command and staff assignments, completed 37 military schools from the tactical level to strategic level, including United States Army War College, completing a master's in strategic studies, and became level 3 joint certified by the United States Northern Command Dual Status Commander Certification Program. I also had an opportunity to complete a master's in organizational management at Eastern Connecticut State University. After 9/11, I was intensely involved in the training and deployment of quick reaction forces around the state of Connecticut and on several homeland security missions to protect critical infrastructure 24/7. Some of these locations included Millstone and Connecticut Yankee nuclear power plants, the rail network into New York City, federal and municipal airports, the Gold Star Bridge in New London and Groton, and other locations when required. We also work very closely with our local first responders, state and federal partners. Also have had the opportunity to be part of severe weather responses in the state of Connecticut, doing what the Connecticut National Guard does best, saving lives, protecting property, and reducing human suffering. I served as a senior leader from 2005 to 2006 in the highly contested Eastern Zone of Afghanistan. Our mission was to train and conduct combat operations with Afghan National Army and U.S. and coalition forces. I reside in Waterford. My oldest son, Stephen, is a combat veteran with 3 combat tours, 2 to Afghanistan and 1 tour to Africa. He is a full-time physician assistant for the Connecticut National Guard. He previously served in the emergency department at Yale as a physician assistant. Daughter Katie is a graduated last Saturday from Quinnipiac University in the honors program, occupational therapy. And youngest son Ethan is entering his senior year down at Pennsylvania State University, majoring in public health. I'm excited about working with the staff at Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs. I look forward to continuing the great work Commissioner Sadi, his staff, and the Board of Trustees have been doing in support of nearly 170,000 veterans and their families in Connecticut. I look forward to your questions and support during this next tour of duty, if confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Sorry to be a few minutes, running a few minutes late from Norwalk. But I can't say anything because I have a colleague here from Stanford. She was here before I was, so no excuses. Yeah. Mr. Walsh, thank you for agreeing to serve as commissioner, and we're grateful for all of your service. So first of all, thank you for your service, and
Thank you. very much.
your sons as well, and you must be very proud of your family. Your congratulations to your daughter who just graduated. That's really great news, and somebody who has a rising senior in college. It's a great feeling when they accomplish that big goal of theirs, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
there's maybe no more payments too at the same time. So that's great. And your resume is really perfect for this job that we have here today. And I would imagine, do you know now Judge Sadi?
I do.
You do, yeah.
I've had an opportunity to work closely with that organization. We partner with them on certain events, and we also have what we call Veterans Rally Point 2, has been located on John Levittow Lane
Mhm.
on the campus, and we have temporary housing for vets that are homeless. We signed a lease approximately 4 years ago for 6 houses. Temporary housing is strictly transitional, 4 to 6 months. Get the vet stable and on their way to employment or a better place to live.
Excellent. And so I that has been, we're so fortunate in Connecticut to have such a strong National Guard here, and it's been under great leadership. Actually, I think I do remember you talking about you on your current position, or what you were in the Easter Seals as well, and working on that. But to get back to the current nomination, I guess for me anyway, one of the questions I would have is, how does the state Veterans Affairs and the federal Veterans Affairs, how are they similar and how are they different? I know federal is a lot of healthcare, but how do they support one another, I guess, is
Sure.
the point of my
So
question.
it's critical that they maintain a great partnership. The state, as you know, the skilled nursing facilities at the state, they're housing on a dorm side. So, and also the Office of Assistance and Advocacy is spread around the state, and the cemetery. I look at the federal VA as having the 2 big hospitals, one in Newington and the other one down in West Haven. The federal VA also provides compensation primarily to those veterans that qualify for that. They also have the vocational rehabilitation services where they'll provide additional education and those types of things. So I look at the state as being big advocates to ensure that veterans receive the benefits and entitlements that they've earned for their service. The federal is the bigger organization that has tremendous resources and programs and services that the state supplements to ensure that everything is provided that's required.
Great. Thank you for that. And I get thinking about ways in which we have a very active Veterans and Military Affairs Committee here in our state legislature, which has really done great work. I'd say probably 99.99% of it has been on a bipartisan basis, and probably most of the legislation flies through the legislature unanimously. But what are some things that we can do to support veterans who are coming back. We hear so much about PTSD, jobs, getting jobs, housing, you know, those are big issues. And you know, veterans are coming back, they're younger, they may not have the support system. We don't want to see suicide rates amongst our veterans. What can we do more? You know, there was the, you know, again, we had the federal VAs, but you know, from a state standpoint, what else can we do?
Senator, that's a great question. And we struggle with this, and I have struggled with this for nearly 5 years at the job that I'm in now. It's the information part of things, getting the information out on what benefits our members are entitled to. There's a lot of confusion because there are a lot of programs at the local, state, and federal level. So it comes down to what are these individuals eligible for? Where do they go? I look at the representatives in each town that, you know, all 169 towns are supposed to have a veteran representative, which the Office of Advocacy, I know, trains and has those in place, making sure as the first part that they really understand what is available and they can communicate that out within their local communities. And then it builds up to the region and to the state level. How do you pull the younger crowd in is a question that we struggle with. We try to participate and have participated in a lot of events to be shoulder to shoulder, you know, 22-kilometer hikes to remember. That's in Glastonbury, for example, suicide awareness and prevention. So we try to get out there on the ground and team and meet these folks. The veteran stand downs are very powerful. There's going to be 5 satellite locations again this year. That's a good way for people to really connect with what benefits are out there. You know, I asked my oldest son that I talked about had deployed to combat 3 times, you know, what's going on, especially now that he's a healthcare provider. Why aren't we seeing the younger crowd? And his comment back was, well, you have to remember, a lot of them are struggling. Some of them they're kind of hiding in the backdrop. Some of them don't even want to be recognized as a veteran because they're afraid that they're going to get labeled as that person that, you know, might have PTSD, depression, anxiety. So they're trying to, you know, maybe stabilize a relationship or get a job, finish their education. We continue to try to remove the stigma from the whole issue of getting help behavioral health wise. In our particular facility, we brought down an Easter Seals therapist to help. We also have virtual therapy available, and we also brought in a local therapist from the vet center. One of the federal vet centers is in our building also. I talk publicly whenever I do a speaking type engagement about the importance. It doesn't matter what your rank is or what your financial background is. It depends on what your life experience is and things that may have happened to you. And things won't get better with time. And if you need help, you need to seek it out. What I will say is I think all of you have done a tremendous job making sure that you've provided a lot of resources in Connecticut. We did have the veteran homeless veteran reintegration program federal grant for a couple of years at the location where I work, and we struggle to find homeless veterans and trying to pull them in to get them the help that they needed.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. Obviously, our work continues. I mean, all of us who are going to march in Memorial Day parades and go to veterans events. We have a bunch in Norwalk starting this weekend. It's kind of like the week before we plant flags and we have a ceremony for our Medal of Honor winners, Shay McGrath, and then we have our parade. And you see a lot of older veterans who are involved, and that's fine, obviously, but you really want to see some of the younger men and women who have been in uniform as well, because you want to bring them in, and as you said, you know, have them be recognized if they want, but not forced. But you want to have them have a seat at the table and
Absolutely
have their voices there.
We need to bring them in. You know, you all know that the Vietnam vets were not welcomed home appropriately, so they struggled for many, many years. Suffered in silence is what I call it.
Right.
So we don't want that to happen to this generation.
Absolutely. And one last thing I'll say, and this is just a comment, not a question, but you my dad was in both my grandfather and my uncle were in the Army in World War II and served honorably. My dad was in the National Guard during Vietnam. He did not get called up to go. The war ended, I guess, beforehand, but he never was considered a veteran. And that always bothered me. And I know it bothers him because he wore a uniform and he was away from me. I was little, just born, and he's not recognized by anybody for wearing that uniform. And I think, those are some of the mistakes that I think need to be corrected at some point in the future, because I think he views that as a mark against him for not being called up or not serving the way others have served. And you did serve and you did a job for your country. So anyway, it's just my comment.
No,
And,
It's a very appropriate comment. What we say on our team is you don't have a chance to choose the wars that you fight in. We have a lot of Cold War veterans that come into our facility, and some of them fall into that category of maybe not being eligible for certain benefits. If they have a DD-214, we provide services to them.
Yeah.
And most recently, my mom just handed me a document from the VA. My stepdad fell into that same exact category. He passed away a few years ago, and he's not entitled to a grave marker.
right.
So
Yeah, big mistake. And it's those things that need to be corrected probably pretty easily by the federal government. It's just not enough of them who want to acknowledge that, because it's probably for them, it's something that they when you feel like you're not welcome or you feel like you're not part of the group, there's nobody advocating for you in a way, I guess. So we should probably figure that out. But thank you very much. I thank you for your service, General, and stepping up to this important job, and look forward to putting your mark on this great department that we have. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman Duff. Mr. Welch, congratulations on your nomination. And as the chairman said, thank you for your service and your willingness to serve in a different capacity. As you mentioned, your next tour of duty, which I thought was appropriate. Just a couple quick questions. Can you expand a little bit on the work that the Veterans Rally Point does? I was just recently on your website, and it's just incredible, the amount of work, the resources that are available. Can you just expand a little bit on that?
Absolutely. And it wouldn't have happened if the state of Connecticut didn't identify a need out there and provide that 2.5 million. We took the 2.5 million. We were in an existing space of 60,000 square feet. It was a large building, Easter Seals building up in Norwich. The programs are still there and services for Easter Seals. And part of it was a warehouse. So we went ahead and tried to come up with the appropriate programs and services we thought veterans needed to connect everybody, to not have them be socially isolated. So we start out, as you walk in the facility and you go down to the end of the hall, we have a wellness studio. So that the intended purpose of that is for yoga and meditation. Great therapy for those that are suffering from depression, PTSD, and anxiety. So that is available. Right next to that is an employment center. We have 8 computers in the employment center. We have an employment specialist that's a retired military service member that can help get vets and those that are transitioning out of the military job ready. Help them prep a resume, do job coaching, do job searching. We have a little conference room next to that. We have, as you come down the hall, what I consider the most important space, and that's behavioral health. And as I said, we have 3 different types of behavioral health. One is remote through an organization out of state. It's virtual. It's called VFR, Forge VFR. We have that therapist that comes over from the Norwich Vet Center. He's a very seasoned combat vet, does an exceptionally good job. And we have our own Easter Seals therapist. But this is our number one priority, is to help those that are really struggling psychologically and their families, to be in a better place. If you walk down that hallway and walk through one of the other side hallways, you come into a big open space. That's our community space. We can grid off into 3 grids. We close it off on Monday and we open to the general public, an AA meeting. We have an AA meeting. We also have Computer 101 on Monday in our employment center. I'm going to jump to Tuesday is a big pottery day for us. Wednesday is the signature event. It's a peer meetup. We have anywhere from 30 to 45 members. They come in every Wednesday night. Sometimes we'll have some snacks available for them. We pick a different theme. We try to. It's not a therapy session per se. It's a gathering. We do things like we've had a nutrition class. Here's how to make a salad in a jar. We had a gentleman that's does a lot of NASCAR things. He brought in some models, talked about NASCAR racing. I brought in a lot of pictures and different pieces of culture related things, a burqa, a chai pot, and talked about Afghanistan and the challenges on the ground in Afghanistan. So we do those kinds of things on Wednesday night, very popular. Thursday morning is Wood 101, Woodworking 101. We have safety. We talk everybody through how to use the equipment, and then we let them do a project if they'd like. Friday is a big day. It's sewing. There are a couple of very talented gals that come in and will teach sewing or quilting, whatever. They've made a lot of things. Quilting has been very popular. So those are some of the programs and services. The other space in the building is a fitness center with a lot of strength equipment, cardio equipment. We also have a climbing wall. It's not a high climbing wall. It's about 25 feet, about 40 feet long, but it challenges the mind and body. And that maker space is it's all hands on. You know, the pottery, you got your hands in the clay. Again, great therapy, depression, anxiety, PTSD. It's your hands are on the clay and the wood and the sewing. We have 2 large locker rooms. We have a food pantry. We provide free food, non-perishables at this point to anybody in need. It's no hassle. It's not a lot of paperwork. They come in the facility to take what they need and they just make a log entry and, you know, they go on their way. We have a commercial grade kitchen that we're in the process of developing a culinary type program to train vets and those that are in transition and family members that want to go into food service. That's one of our goals, is to be able to do that and also prepare meals. We have a lot of food insecurity within our veteran population, and we have a lot of widowers. We have 17 or 18, you know, these are older gentlemen that they have no one to go home to. So we're going to help teach them how to prepare meals and provide some meals for them potentially. So far through the door, not members, we have in our database probably about approximately 1,200, but through the door, since we cut that ribbon on Veterans Day 2021, we've had a little bit more than 12,000 people open the door and come into the facility. Obviously, a lot of them are repeat folks that come in and out. We have served on our National Veterans Affinity Council, one of my teammates and I, and we have talked about this and shared this model nationally. Our goal at the end of the day is to hope that a lot of these are built around the country. There's been a lot of interest in Connecticut. We've appeared on several shows. One is Vets Corner, and we've talked about this. The benefits of having this facility and these types of facilities is one-stop shop, so vets don't have to scramble and go all over the place. You can tuck it all under one roof. We're open 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening.
I appreciate that. And
I know that was a really long answer.
no,
I
but
apologize.
there was a reason I asked that question, because I thought it was important to highlight all the work that that center does. And again, I went on the website and it was just incredible, the amount of services that are provided there on a day in and day out time period. So I appreciate those comments. My next question, and probably my last, at least for right now, is just centered around housing. I know you mentioned homelessness. Do you believe we're doing enough to provide appropriate housing for veterans?
The state of Connecticut, again, I believe has tremendous resources available, but you've got to partner with everybody. It takes that whole community, because you do have some veterans that are resistant. They've got the backpack on. They don't want to come in yet. They're not ready. So that's the most important thing, is to, if they're not ready, but still engage with them and make sure they have things to survive. Make sure they have some food and they have some kind of shelter, hasty shelter, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of housing available at Rocky Hill. Our housing over at Veterans Rally Point 2 at Rocky Hill, we typically have 1 or 2 beds available over there. If if it doesn't seem to be available in the shelters that are around, and there are several shelters that we also collaborated closely with when we had the Veterans Reintegration Program, that federal grant, then the federal VA is providing vouchers. So you will hear a lot of advocates in the veteran community talk about maybe the eastern part of the state, there's not a lot of housing available. So that could be looked at out there.
Appreciate that answer. Again, congratulations on your nomination. I know, following in the footsteps of Commissioner Sadi is not easy, but I think you're perfectly aligned to do just that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We may have a question from Representative Yacarino.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really apologize, sir. I'm not there, Mr. Welch. I just want to congratulate you. I have something locally, then we have a late session. But hopefully we could get you down to our post 76 in North Haven eventually. But a lot of the questions I would ask were to be asked, and I think there are great questions. And I believe our Department of Veterans Affairs have done a tremendous job. And I believe with you at the helm, we'll continue that. And I appreciate you stepping up, serving another tour for our Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. Unfortunately, I don't think I could vote for you as a Senate resolution, but I will be there to support you like all of us. And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you in person soon. We'll get you an invitation to post 76.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Representative. Senator Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioner. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you very much, Senator.
And you obviously had a very lengthy period of distinguished military service going back to 1978, and a significant amount of experience, obviously, in the National Guard as Brigadier General, Colonel, some of the other leadership positions, and this looking at the demographics of veterans as and services that you've talked about, it seems to me that increasingly there's going to be an emphasis upon geriatric services to a greater extent. And always I was thinking that looking at it, the demographics now, like the biggest cohort of veterans, of course, obviously used to be the World War II veterans, but now the youngest World War II veteran is probably 96 years old, assuming born in 1927, maybe turned 18 in the last year of the war. So your youngest World War II vet is 96 among us. And in the Korean War vets, the youngest Korean War vet, presumably turning 18 in 1953, the last year, is now 87 or 88 years old. And the Vietnam vets, the older Vietnam vets, are now in their early 80s, and the youngest of them are probably in their late 60s. And those were the times when you had large numbers of people serving because the draft existed. So with all of the veterans who have served during Afghanistan and Iraq, you had a relatively much smaller number of people because it was the all-volunteer military, and serving multiple deployments in many cases. So, what is your plan to serve a generation of veterans that the number served will be smaller, presumably, but the number, the needs may be larger on an individual basis, and as the entire cohort ages. Just to what's your long-term planning? Because a few years from now, virtually all the World War II vets will be gone, and our society, it's hard to have a sense of the scale of mobilization that we saw during World War II, and it's never been seen since in terms of our participation. It really struck me when I was when I started practicing law, doing title searches. Representative Godfrey will be aware of this too, starting around the same time. When you go into the vaults in city halls and you start to do a title search, they had those old heavy ledgers with the land records. Next to the heavy ledgers with the land records were the heavy ledgers with the military discharge papers. And I remember looking at in New Haven, they had one big ledger that covered the entire period from 1930 to 1939. But when you looked at 1945 and 1946, there was a ledger of that size and thickness for each 3-month period. So it was that gave you a visual sense about the total mobilization of society. So many veterans coming back, and Korea was somewhat of a smaller scale, but similarly, you had a draft that went on to enlarge the military ranks. the draft went on in Vietnam, a large cohort of people served there too, but after Vietnam, that really ended. So what's your long-term planning for veterans in terms of their demographic, your service, and the service of an all-volunteer army rather than an army that is periodically enlarged because of the draft in the time of crisis?
That's a great question, Senator. So first, I would say that the skilled nursing facility at Rocky Hills is getting exceptional good reviews. So if that were to be at full capacity, then we'd need to think about expanding possibly into some of the existing infrastructure there, or maximizing community care that's available. So making sure that that veteran population understands they're eligible for community care. We have in our facility right now, 2 94-year-old combat vets from Korea. They're really spry, both of them. One of them works full-time and comes out and works out in our fitness center for every single day in the afternoon. So, you know, I haven't dug intently into that topic, but it's something that would absolutely require some more research and thought, long-term thought.
Thank you, General, and congratulations on this mission.
Thank you very much.
That's me, sorry. Thank you, Representative Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations.
Thank
You
you.
got big shoes to fill. More about that in a moment.
Absolutely.
Just for full disclosure, I'm Navy.
Oh,
I served from 1970 to
Army, DD.
1977. I got honorably discharged about the time you joined up. I'm one of those 74-year-old Vietnam era veterans. I joined the Navy to see the world. They sent me to Newport, Rhode Island. Go figure.
You saw the
Sometimes you
part
just
of life.
Yeah. I never understood the brass. I was an enlisted man. Now, speaking of that, you started as an enlisted man, I see from your resume, and obviously you became an officer. Tell me a little bit about how that transition happened. I'm just curious personally.
You know, that's a great question. Also, I didn't know a lot about the officer corps, and in 1981, I was a Sergeant E5. I had just gotten back from Marine Corps Sniper School as an Army Ranger, and we were getting ready to go on a big operation. And unfortunately, I had a significant parachute accident in line of duty. My parachute, I was released way off the drop zone.
Ouch.
My parachute hit a few Douglas firs way up in the air, and I free fell about 60 to 80 feet. So I was medevac to Madigan Army Hospital and underwent a lot of physical therapy and some surgeries. The good news is I know what it's like to be a patient. I'm not a good patient. But so that was a life-changing, significant life-changing experience. And for a period of time, as I was laying on a backboard, I thought it was over in terms of my career. I really didn't know what to do. But I had a great battalion commander who did not want to medically separate me from the Army, provided a lot of encouragement and support. He sent me to one of the local community colleges to take a few courses, and I ended up serving as staff duty non-commissioned officer at night. Eventually, through some really great physical therapy and other therapies, I got myself back together physically and went to officer candidate school and was eventually commissioned, and I moved forward, you know, from that point on.
What a great story. That's fascinating. I'm Representative Danbury. And Tom Sadi has been a friend of mine since the 20th century. Back in the 20th century, we've known each other for a very long time. You have big shoes to fill, as you know. He is a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve out of a place in Danbury, Reserve Center there. In fact, I'm hoping to see he'll still be marching in the Danbury War Memorial Parade in his uniform, obviously not in his judicial robes anymore. But I'm always looking forward to seeing him there. He, of course, always spoke of the motto of the Department of Veterans Affairs, serving those who have served. How do you interpret that? What does that mean to you?
I would say first off, those that have served, we have a special bond and we want to take care of our own. But there are also, I've seen tremendous providers that have no military affiliation at all, provide very good programs and services to take care of our veteran population. So
And-
that's, when I see those words, that's what I think about. is-
They're meaningful, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've been there, we've been in the trenches, we've been on the water, under the water, in the mountains, in the desert, in the jungles, and some in combat and some not. So I think we get it, those that have served.
And kind of along those lines, especially with our fellow veterans, the General Assembly's been very good about, especially when it comes to those who are looking for state licenses or state jobs, of recognizing the specialities that our veterans have years of experience in. And, I'm Navy, just about everybody's a specialist. There's no infantry type analog. And we've provided apprenticeship. We've waived some apprenticeship requirements. We've recognized applications who might be going into the police forces or as security guard or as EMTs. One of my favorite, other consumer protection licensing, electric work, plumbing, that kind of thing. I always wonder, is there anything we missed? And certainly as you become commissioner, I'm hoping you'll be able to help us out with that kind of approach, because the experience is tremendous.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's one of those things you leave the military and, overnight, all that you've done for years doesn't mean anything anymore. It should mean something very much. So could you comment on that, please?
Sure. Connecticut's leaning forward. The governor's established committees, one in particular I'm actually on, through over at Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs. They asked me to be a member of that. And it's all about veteran employment. And how do we let the employers know that maybe don't have a military background, what veterans how do we provide that education so they understand how the military occupational skills become compatible with the civilian trades and other things that are out there in civilian employment. At Veterans Rally Point right now, every Monday afternoon at 1:30, we have an employment workshop. And one of the lead employers in Southeastern Connecticut, of course, is Electric Boat and General Dynamics. We happen to have a person that serves in the Air National Guard that he's their employment specialist. So he comes up to Veterans Rally Point and talking about, because a lot of times our veterans don't even know how their things could cross over. How do you shape that resume so that employer that doesn't know a lot about the military can identify you as being somebody that can bring a lot to their business or to their employment?
Making sure they know that there's help to make the transition into civilian jobs, I think is one of the most important parts of your job. So I appreciate your comments on that. I've been active in veterans organization, Catholic War Veterans, both on my local level and state level. Certainly know of other veterans organizations and down my way. And they were very big for World War II veterans, for Korean War veterans. Vietnam War veterans, there weren't many comrades in arms of mine that got involved. They seemed to kind of move into other activities rather than some of the veterans organizations. And so there's been this gap for a number of years, but I'm happy to see that the Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans are now beginning to get active again. Down my way, the Veterans of Foreign Wars has a lot of young people who are not only members, but are actually running organizations. So I'm happy to see that. And I'm hoping you'll be able to help out recruiting younger, more recent veterans to get involved in those kind of organizations because they can liaise with you, with the Department of Veterans Affairs so well in getting that information out, kind of by word of mouth, about the help that's available to make the transitions. And I'm very proud of the fact that the VFW down my way are actually putting together they're doing fundraising actually to create Connecticut's first memorial to veterans of the Afghan and the Iraqi wars. We haven't seen that kind of activity in a very, very long time. And yes, we're asking the General Assembly for some money, so we'll talk about that later. But that kind of astounds me that that's a very high level of engagement. Where do you feel that DVA can help?
It's powerful what's going on down there. And I know they recently hosted a ball also. That will provide some additional funding for that. I would say starting out at that local level, making sure that we do some good training with those veteran service representatives in all of our towns. And when those things are out there, different activities, there are a couple groups, and I hate to use names, but one in particular that we've participated in. It's called the Hike to Remember. It's one of the Marine Corps Detachment 40s out of Glastonbury. That draws a couple hundred service members, prior service members every year. It's a hike. It's 22 kilometers long, and you're talking the whole time. And it's amazing what we hear along those. There's another one, a Reverent Warrior is taken off, relatively young crowd and a Reverent Warrior. Those are very powerful organizations to also make sure that we team with as the word spreads out about different activities. What I notice about this, the OIF and OEF veteran population is they want to do things. They want to do outings. They want to do a hike. They want to have a motorcycle poker run, something along those lines. They don't want to necessarily stay in the Legion or in the VFW for hours, like maybe the World War II, that camaraderie, it was a little different, right? The whole country was behind the World War II veteran population. Korean, the forgotten war in a lot of respects. So a lot of the Korean vets didn't maybe feel like they were well received in some cases in some of those organizations. And I think the Vietnam vets is the same thing.
You're absolutely right. You really put your finger on it. Thank you. I remember talking to fellow veterans in my cohort. Well, why aren't you getting involved in the veterans organization? Oh, veterans, those are those people from World War II and Korea, not us. So that was an obstacle that needs to be overcome. And I'm happy to hear that you're going to participate in that. Similarly, Danbury for many, many years, decades, has had a municipal agent for dealing with veterans services and being able to guide men and women into a lot of the programs that exist. I'm not sure, however, how extant that kind of a program is in other municipalities, and I'm hoping it's something we can explore in the not too distant future. One of the challenges of your job is you're going to have to talk to us, and that can always be quite a challenge. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your willingness to fulfill this very important cabinet position, and I wish you the best of fortune. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The other thing I would add is I believe those military liaison congressional reps in the offices are very powerful. And they help us a lot out in the East with Congressman Courtney's office and Manny Menes, as far as getting the word out on different things that are happening. So I would encourage and will encourage, the agency to continue to make sure we're in very close contact with those folks.
Thank you, Representative Sanchez.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. For me, it's a pleasure to meet a brigadier general. It's been a long time.
Thank you.
I too, I'm a veteran, Marine Corps, Ura,
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. And I want to congratulate you on your nomination and your willingness to continue to serve our country, our community, and our soldiers and veterans. Truly appreciate that. So most of my questions been answered, but I do have a couple of, lighter questions. Going back to the description of what Veterans Rally Point does, you mentioned employment services. Do you help, or is there any programs to help them get their identification, licenses, certifications? And is that coupled with business support?
So one thing I didn't mention before, in our footprint, we also have a veteran service officer from Department of Veterans Affairs. So that in the case of like EB, our employment representative working with our employment specialist between, in that case, those three, that's a really good team. The employment specialist can identify strengths and weaknesses and what kind of employment that person wants to go into. And if they are eligible for vocational rehab, for example, to tap into some of those benefits, then we can go right across the community space and link them up with that veteran service officer and try to work that out.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is about outreach. You mentioned earlier the difficulty in having veterans come in and apply, or at least to become registered as an identified veteran in the VA hospital, for example. It took me 34 years to get my cousin who joined the Marines with me back in '84, 34 years to get him registered at the VA hospital. And he felt that, I guess there's some kind of rumor that if you did not file right away or register right away, then you lost your opportunity. So what kind of outreach do you have for that, as well as outreach for, veterans to let them know there's a lot of opportunities in getting help?
So I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Commissioner Sadi about this, but I understand there's a mobile vehicle over at Department of Veterans Affairs that can be used for external events. So we need to get that, if possible, get that back on the road, making sure that those vet reps locally and regionally, those veteran service offices, those 5 of them, are doing what they can do to connect locally and pushing the word out through social media. The Facebook and website and everything looks pretty good right now that the department has established. But we've got to continue. It's a continuous process.
So with what you just said, that's basically depending on the veteran to go to that mobile unit, correct? Is there a program where it's a search and identify?
I'm sure there's a database out there that is loading veteran status throughout the state of Connecticut as they're identified.
Okay, and just 2 more questions. So what can we do to help expand the Veterans Rally Point? Let's say I want to bring one to Hartford. What's required right now?
We've been approached by a retired Marine Corps Colonel, Adele Hodges in Bridgeport. She is trying to establish one down there. We've shared our plans and we've given her some ideas about some corporate sponsorship that she may want to approach. So she's in the process. I don't know how far exactly she is. The city of Bristol, Donna Dugan, with their veteran program that they have down there, they've talked a little bit. And I don't remember out in Danbury, but somebody did talk to us previously about the possibility of doing something like that. The first thing is identifying the need. The big areas, of course, the big centers, the Waterburys and Danburys and Bridgeports and those very large population centers. There's probably some space available. So that's really the first thing, is if it could be tucked under something like a 501 3C, that would be very important to do that because it needs oversight. If you just try to stand this up yourself and do fundraising, oh, I want to build a Veterans Rally Point number 3 somewhere, probably struggle doing that.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last one, have you ever heard of the Borinqueneers?
I'm sorry,
Borinqueneers,
no.
okay. They're the Army 65th Infantry Regiment, mostly comprised of Puerto Ricans. And they've finally been recognized after so many years. They're from the Korean War, which is basically almost forgotten. And now they're celebrated on April 13th every year. And one of the challenges here is to identify those Puerto Ricans that served in the Korean War, so that we can get them a plaque, a medal, and have them registered and known that they are part of the Borinqueneers for that era. But,
I know
you know,
that-
so hopefully we can have an outreach on that too.
I know that Director Lesbian Nieves is very active and she'll be all over trying
Thank
to,
you.
you know,
Thank
I
you.
know there's been some recognition previously. I don't know that it's been at that level you just discussed.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your service as well. Representative Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, General Welch. It is such a pleasure meeting you and having you before us this evening. I mean this morning. I do have a few questions, but before I start my questions, I also want to say thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
I also have 2 kids who are in the Air Force, and both of them are also veterans, but they're still active on their reserve. So every time I have next to me a veteran or somebody before me, I take my hat before all of you, you know, with humility, because I know the kind of work that your guys do and how you risk your life to keep us safe. So thank you again to the 3 of you.
Well, we thank
So-
you for being a Blue Star parent.
Thank you. With that said, pretty much all the questions have been asked. However, I do have a few. I would like to know as to whether you are aware of the unemployment rate within the veterans. And I would like also to know as to what job barriers do they face, if you are aware of them.
I'm sorry, ma'am, could you just,
I said, what is the unemployment rate?
unemployment rate? Within the veteran population?
Yes.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Are you aware as to what job barriers do they face?
Am I aware of
The barriers they faced?
the barriers that veterans face? Oh, absolutely. Some have physical disabilities, you know, TBIs, depression, anxiety, PTSD. So the behavioral health is a barrier. Some are homeless. Some have not worked for a very long time. That's something when we had the homeless veteran reintegration program that I worked closely with our team to, once we identified them, to let them know that maybe they can't start out with the ideal job that they would like. You know, maybe you can't be a manager right away. Yes, we thank you for your service, but you have so much white space. You haven't had employment for a long time. So let's start with a very simple job and use that as a stepping stone to move forward, to get where you really want to be.
Thank you. I realize the medical conditions that you just mentioned are difficulties that they do have. But along with that, I would like to know as to how do we prepare the veterans for civilian jobs?
Yes. So good question. We bring them in. It all starts with an assessment to find out what skill sets they have in their background. What's their education level? What jobs have they done previously? What military training have they received? Do they want to continue to do the same type of thing they did in the military? How does it cross over? And if some have no desire to do the same thing, so we try to develop a path for them that makes sense.
And thank you. And my last question, which is pretty much correlated to your last answer, will be, I would like to know as to what type of programs does the department have in place to help them obtain jobs?
what types of programs
Do we
does?
have any programs?
Okay, so I know at Veterans Rally Point two, all of our programs there tie into what we're doing in Norwich and Rocky Hill. I know that the current staff at Rocky Hill on the main campus takes the same basic approach that we do. For those that want to get out of the dorm style living, or those that want to become employed, they do a similar type assessment, trying to find out where they are and the barriers some of the barriers also are legal issues. Some have struggled, they've gotten in trouble, either in the military or in the civilian private sector. Some struggle with substance, drugs, alcohol, some of it's prescribed medication that they have issues with. So it's all about trying to identify those barriers and coming up with strategies to work through.
And what we are talking about here, veterans are also, I have great concern, of course, as I said, as a mother, my son was deployed and I believe he went to Afghanistan. And when he came back with, I think, 5 or 10% of disability to his back. And this is because when we are deploying them, I don't think we are also providing them perhaps with good settings. And I mean, even a good bed to sleep. Because my son got this disability due to sleeping on a bed that, it was not appropriate. I think all he could feel was probably the wires under the bed. So maybe while this may not be in your purview as the commissioner, I think this is something, that at least I am putting it out there, that maybe they come back with physical disabilities also because, we are not providing them with the right settings that they need to be provided with. And I know that you are new into this appointment. So I would like to know, General Walsh, what are your goals for the department and what are going to be, at least give me a few top priorities as the new commissioner.
Yeah. So first, going back to your son, the most important thing we always encourage people while we're in the military is if anything happens to them, make sure they get they get documentation because the VA will want that. The veteran service officer that's helping them from the state of Connecticut or federal will need that documentation to support a potential claim for medical care, medical treatment, or potentially some kind of disability compensation down the road. So as far as, being new to the position and goals and for the organization and all those types of things, I have to get in and kind of assess things. I have a general idea of what is going on in the organization, what the budget is. Some of the current priorities are a big one is the cemetery. I know all of you have heard this before, but I think it's going to be a max capacity in about the next 3 years. So we have to be leaning forward to procure some more land. And I know there's some of that is, starting, some of that work has already been done. So making sure that the veteran cemetery can handle the capacity and that new infrastructure can be done. But making sure that's done in a proactive way, because it's just not getting the land, right? You have to put a road network in, you have to maybe have drainage and other things, very important. Life safety has to be a priority. I know there's about 30 different projects they have right now on campus that they've talked to the Board of Trustees about and get feedback. So making sure that anything life safety wise is identified, and that has to be a priority. And then trying to, I know a lot of great things have been done, going from the 4 people in a dorm to 2, that's a big thing. Some new furnishings have been purchased over the last couple of years. Another real plus for the residents that are there. I think the organization did a tremendous job during COVID in the skilled nursing facility, putting all those countermeasures in place and taking care of the residents, for their safety and health. So, and then similar to what we were trying to do at Veterans Rally Point, what does this next generation need? what are they interested in doing? One of the misses for us, social isolation is the worst thing in the world. So what's the draw? How do we bring them in? One thing we talked about was a room with a gaming type room where that younger crowd could get together and get on some of the different gaming things that are out there. So trying to identify those things to, there may be some infrastructure over there that could be maybe stood back up. I understand there's a barber shop and I haven't had a chance to talk to them recently about it, but maybe something as simple as that, as opening that barber shop back up. And, that could be employment for a couple people working in that barber shop, and the residents could go ahead and cycle through there. But going back to another question was asked previously, and I forgot about this, they're part of the employment program over there on campus is they do employ a lot of the residents have a job over there. They're working on campus, doing things like fixing some of the infrastructure that's there and monitoring the other clients and members that live there. So.
All right, thank you so much for your answers. I really appreciate going over your resume. I am confident that you are the right person for this position. And while I am not going to be able to vote for you, if I was to do it, I would have done it without any hesitation. Once again, thank you so much for your service and for your willingness to serve in this capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I don't see any other questions from our online members right now. Or comments, so thank you. Thank you. Mr. Walsh, I just want to mention one thing before I ask you the final question is that your nomination obviously came late in the General Assembly's legislative session this year. Usually we're done with our work by the end of March. So this is kind of like bringing the band back together again. But Judge Sadi became a judge, as we know, and left, and the committee, my co-chair and I and the rest of the committee thought that it was important enough to come back in the final 3 weeks of our session to make sure that we had this hearing and confirm a Veterans Commissioner, not have it linger over till next year. For you as an interim, we wanted to make sure we held this hearing because of the importance of the position and your qualifications. So I speak on behalf of, I think, everybody here. And saying that we understand this is an important position and know that you're qualified and want to get you in there as soon as we can to get working. And again, thank you for your service as well. So with that, we have one final question that we ask everybody. Is there anything in your past that might prove to be embarrassing to yourselves, the General Assembly, the committee, or the governor, or the state of Connecticut? Sir.
I would hope not.
Okay. I think I got everything in there. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we will close the public hearing, and Madam Clerk, when you're ready, we'll open up our committee meeting and we'll vote. So thank you to our House members who are here today. Have a good rest of the day session. We're going to be in session as soon as we're done with this committee meeting.
I greatly appreciate all your time and service to our great state of Connecticut.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Madam Commissioner, Madam Clerk. Not yet, right? Yeah. Madam Clerk, we will convene the meeting of the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee for Thursday, May 18, 2023. And we will go right to our Senate resolution for review. Ronald P. Welch of Waterford, Brigadier General, to be appointed as retired Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. Is there a motion? Moved by Senator Looney, and I will second the nomination. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Duff,
Yes.
Senator Looney,
Yes.
Senator Kelly, Senator Fonfara, Senator Hartley, Senator Kushner, Senator Martin, Senator Moore, Senator Summers. That is your roll, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will hold the vote open until the first chamber goes into session. With that, we are recessed. Thank you so much. All right, got it done.
Hello, Wendy. Wendy, you're on mute.
I am unmuted.
Oh.
But you still can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Senator Summers, you can hear me? You're voting yes?
And I'm
Senator-
voting yes also.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Got it. I have Kelly, I have.
Take care.
Summers. We're good. Senator Hartley, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can. Good morning. How
Good
are you?
Well, thank you. Ronald P. Welch to be appointed as Commissioner of Veterans Affairs.
In the affirmative.
Thank you very much. You are so noted.
Yes, thank you. Have a
Okay,
good
take
one.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.
Hi, Wendy. Muted.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Want to say hello? Hope you're all good.
Hello, I'll text you in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Senator Kushner, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good
Okay.
morning.
Ronald Welch of Waterford to be appointed as Commissioner of Veterans Affairs.
Senator Kushner votes yes.
Great, you're all set then.
Thank you.
Thank you, take care.
You too. He's dying. They kept going on the and I had my meeting going till like 2 o'clock. They came, oh, no time, and going and going, and like, oh gosh. Anything good on the concourse? So he was like a nurse the first time I Rhonda had a bag of something. Yep, not there.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
I vote yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you certainly may. I will mark you down. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. We have Martin. So we have Moore and Fonterra.